Yo, what's up? All right. Um, Calgary, if you could let me know when the audio is working for you, we're gonna get started here. Just throw me a thumbs up or something. The hand is not working today. The hand's not working. So we're gonna have somebody watch it. Like the system just stopped, and I don't want to go find a mouse to plug in. To like restart it. Also, I don't know. Like Sam didn't leave like a README or something. So I don't know if he's got some like voodoo to turn it on, or if it's like or what. Oh, you're wearing a Yeezus shirt. All right. Yes. And then there's sadness about the face. So just to confirm though, you can hear me. That's is that a thing? Oh, Braden's writing. Darren's writing. Yes, we can. Awesome. Welcome everyone. Welcome to Responsive Design and SASS with Nima. I may not be able to bring the responsive design, but I can bring the SASS. Woo, yeah. You know who it is? No, okay. So, um, yeah, I should start every one of my lectures with like, "It's your boy." Um, so today what we're doing is just more, just more neat stuff. Let me open up Visual Studio Code here. It is week 3, day 5. Responsive design and SASS. Yeah. Oh, look at that. Y'all can't see anything. Good call. Yeah. There you go. Responsive design and SASS. So basically, today's just going to be a little bit of an exploration in CSS. I want to just kind of preface this by saying the stuff that I'm showing here today is more like, wow, look at how cool that stuff is in CSS. And if you enjoy it, awesome, right? Like explore it, play around with it some more. If you hate it, if you're disgusted by this stuff, perfect, right? Don't do front end, right? Like go do back end. This is like take what you will from it. I'm gonna do my best to make things kind of look pretty. Um, with like CSS, I'm not the most stylish of people, so some of the colors may not be very pretty. Some of the styling may not be fantastic, but I'll show you all the mechanics that go into responsive design. Right? Design. I'll show you all the mechanics that go into that stuff so that you can take all your beautiful ideas and action them with responsive design, and I'll show you what SASS is, which is a CSS pre-processor. These are the two things that we're looking at, and then I'm going to show you more cool CSS stuff as time permits. Right? Just more cool things. Now, first, how's Twitter going, y'all? Going pretty good? Y'all enjoying it? Cool. So today's assignments, I don't know if you took a look at what like the Friday assignments are for Twitter. There's no like mandatory assignments on Friday. It's all stretch, right? So it's an interesting way to kind of end the project. Is once you finish Thursday stuff, today you can just kind of pick and choose from a handful of stretch assignments, right? Some of them are deploying Twitter to the cloud. Right? Another one is using SASS in Twitter, right? There's a couple other things like making tweets likable, right? All sorts of stuff. So really this is your opportunity to, when you finish the Thursday work, to kind of pick and choose and explore a little bit. So, oh no. Yeah. So, just to kind of start off, I want to motivate the idea behind responsive design. If we go on a website, such as the ever beautiful, content is like water. Put a water in a cup. Oh, this is nice. Yeah. Oh. So we go to the ever beautiful Wikipedia, and we say, wow, look at how nice this website is. It's got all these things on the left and these things on the right. And then I go ahead and I'm using the inspect. I'm going into the Chrome DevTools, and one of the things that you'll find in the Chrome DevTools is this little button up here that says toggle to like device mode. And if I click on this, now I'm in like responsive device mode. And I can simulate what the page would look like if I was on, say, and if I click up here, I can choose what if I was on an iPhone X or 10, right? Like, this is what it would look like on an iPhone, right? Here's what this would look like on a Pixel 2, right? Am I alone in thinking that this looks like, let me make this a little bit bigger. Am I alone in thinking that this looks like hot garbage, right? This looks like just straight up garbage. Like, this is trash. And what we want to do is instead have our content respond to the size of the screen, right? Respond to the size of the screen so that I don't need to, if I'm on my phone, I don't need to like pinch and zoom to go like, oh, what does this little bit of text here mean? And I have to like really zoom in, oh, page information, and then I'm here and I have to like scroll sideways to go to the article. Just what a pain. What an actual pain, right? So that's the motivation for us, is we want to somehow be able to listen to the size of the screen and change up things like font sizes, right? Make the fonts bigger, right? And we might also want to do things like change the actual layout of the page, right? Because viewing a website, in portrait mode on a big screen is much different than viewing a website, say, in not portrait, landscape mode on a big screen is much different than viewing a website on a portrait mode in your phone. We might want to, for example, take these two elements here, this big green thing and this big blue thing, and if we're in like portrait mode, want to like just put them one on top of each other as opposed to side by side. So, there's a couple kind of different ways that we could do this, but the way we're going to explore it today is with just plain old CSS. So I'll be writing some HTML, and then we're going to write CSS that's going to change the way that HTML is being displayed on the page in a couple different ways. Just to kind of do a little bit more exploration here, though, Wikipedia, decidedly not very responsive. It just kind of squishes in on itself. I mean, what is interesting is that this thing here, from today's featured article and in the news, they don't stay the same width. Right? That's something that we're noticing here. They don't stay the same width. Right? As they squeeze the page, this thing gets smaller. Right? But it still stays kind of like proportional to the page somehow. Right? So that's something to keep in mind. Like, how do we get that to work? If we go look at something like YouTube, right? YouTube is pretty neat, because if I grab the page and I start shrinking it down, after a little bit, where's it going to happen? Oh, something happened there. Right? Whoa. Whoa, right? Things are reorganizing themselves a little bit to make some space. And if I get even closer, what? Right? We got a whole side panel just kind of disappearing when I reach a certain point. Okay? I'm going to call that a break point. So, kind of high level, I've shown you two kind of different things that happen. One would be, like in the Wikipedia page here, that there's certain things like that green and the blue boxes that stay a proportionate width, right? Not a fixed width. And the other thing here would be, oh, when we hit some kind of point, the page actually changes some form of its layout, right? If I go even deeper, I think, there we go. If I go even deeper, things like the search bar end up disappearing. Right? And I could, on this page here as well, instead of just resizing my page, I could also check what would it look like on a Pixel 2XL, right? Also kind of like hot garbage right now. But if I go to an iPad, maybe, not great. Pixel 2, a little bit better. Still not that great. Many of these websites, this is something that we're not going to explore here, but many of these websites might have a mobile version of them. Something like m.youtube.com. So if I go to m.youtube.com, I'll see that the website is a bit different. Right? So they've made like a separate version of the site. It's not responsive. It's like a separate view of the website. That's something that we're not going to explore doing today. Right? But, maybe you could imagine if you've done your express routes right now, like they go like / whatever, maybe there's some way, somehow, of routing with the M, right? Not in express, but in something else to route to a different page. Oh my god. Oh, wow. Oh. Oh. Yeah. Whew. Whew. Oh, man. I've been working here for like a year and a bit. That's never happened, so... Oh, snap. Okay. Y'all did not see anything. Just carry on. Hey, Davey, everything's normal. Yeah. Oh my god. Oh. This is a harsh zoom. Did Calgary notice? Oh, did notice typing. Oh, what type? Oh, you missed out. Oh, snap. That's not happening again. I'm not going back to YouTube. So I watch a lot of stand-up. So, what we're gonna do is kind of walk through a couple different ways of doing these like responsive things. I'm gonna make a page here. Wow, whew, a little bit of. Oh man. So what what we're gonna do is I'm just gonna have a couple different kind of pages. I mean, ignore the fact that this isn't an Express project right now. This is just index HTML. Index HTML. I'm going to, let's see, what will I do? I'm just gonna make a completely new project. Actually, I don't want to sully this thing because this is part of the SASS demo. So let me go over here, open up a new place. This is gonna be responsive. Cool. So in here, I'm gonna have index HTML and some main.css, and my HTML file is gonna look something like this, I guess. Like there's doc type HTML, head, title, link, head, body, and link is linking to my main CSS. So we're just going to start from here, and we're going to add more stuff as we kind of go along. But what I might start off with is maybe have my body have a background. Let's see, we're going to go body has a background color of purple. Just nice subtle purple. And open up the page here. So this is on my desktop, responsive index HTML. Nice purple. Nice purple. And I'm going to put in a bunch of divs in here. Oh, that's true, Danilo. You will see it in 2 hours. I mean, I don't know. I guess you'll find out. So what I'm going to do is just throw a bunch of kind of divs in here. Here's a div. Here's another div. And here's another div. Yeah. There's a bunch of divs. And I'm going to target all of the divs give them a height of, I don't know, 100 pixels. And a background color of, color picking, nice background, yellow. Purple and yellow, my favorites. And if I refresh this right now, I've got myself a couple divs here. Let's see. I've got one div, got two divs, and I've got three divs. It can be hard to tell that I have three divs in here. It can be hard to tell, so what I'm going to do is maybe give them like a margin of like 10 pixels. There you go. Got myself some nice, pretty three divs. By default, the way divs act is they take up 100% of the width that you give them. 100%. Now, I could ask a div to do something like, I'm going to get this wrong immediately. Let's see, display inline block. I did get it wrong. Oh no, there you are. Whew. So I added display inline block to the divs, and I will do this in the CSS in a second. But if I add display inline block to the divs, I get the divs over here with some height, but notice that they don't have any width. So I'm going to give them some width. Say height is 100 pixels, width, let's go for a solid 500 pixels. Okay, here are all my divs. 500 pixels. Now, notice that since I've given them like an actual width, as I resize the page here, they're not going to like really kind of do anything. Right? They just kind of bleed over the edge, and I can even if you notice here, I can scroll side to side. I can scroll side to side to see the full extent of the divs. Now, if we want our divs not to take up 100% of the thing, but maybe some percentage of it, and resize according to the page in a ratio, similar to what we saw in the Wikipedia thing, you can give them a width of a percentage. I could say width is 50%. And if I check this right now, my divs are taking up 50% of the screen, and as I resize the screen, they're only staying at 50 every time. 50 every time. Okay, so this is fine. This is cool. Now, I made a little mistake here because what I wanted to do was see if I could get them to show up side by side with each other. Evidently, that didn't happen. So I'm taking this as an opportunity to kind of go, like, listen, CSS is not the kind of thing that you can really think through a ton, especially when you're just starting off. Right? CSS is going to be the kind of thing that you just kind of tinker with. Right? You're going to have to just get comfortable with playing around a bunch and getting frustrated when it, like, goes off in different places. And in fact, what you end up seeing is something kind of like this. I don't know if you've ever seen the Family Guy, like, CSS. Like, this is what it's going to feel like most of the time when you start off. And you're like, oh, almost got it. Almost? Am I there yet? It's like typical Family Guy just really extending a joke for a full minute. So here, I mean, if I wanted to get these things to display in line, oh, here's the thing. I didn't give this display inline block. I'd written it in the inspector, but I hadn't written it in the CSS here. No, that didn't do it either. Oh my god. I did give it a width, but I think part of what it might be is they also just don't fit. Yeah, let's see. Div class row, div class call. Well, we're gonna get into that, Pauline. But Darren is absolutely right. The margin is pushing over 50%. Right. So if I look at this thing here, divs by default, they don't just have the height and the width that I give them, but you might notice that there is like a border around it, and that's the margin. Right. So the margin's pushing over 50%. So if I say 50 and 50, but the margin is bigger than that, then it ends up going to like 55 and 55, and it'll have to snap underneath. Instead, if I do something like 30%, oh, not 30, 30%, right? So I've changed the width to 30% instead of 50. Right? As Darren mentioned, now they can all fit on the page, okay? And they stay on there until they don't have any room, including the margin, and they'll just kind of snap underneath. Okay. So we've started being a little responsive here. Is Darren adding anything else? Oh, Pauline took away the thing. I mean, it was a good question though. I mean, I saw it. so here, if we change this thing to maybe 30%, right, I'm just gonna refresh again. We'll just see the same thing. Over on the topic of the 50 though, 50% here. I guess one of the things that is interesting is, like, I told it explicitly that the width should be 50%, right? And when I use percentages, what that means is the width of this item, right? The width of this div should be 50% of the width of the parent, right? So I go into my HTML and I say, okay, this div should be 50% of the width of this parent, right? 50% of the width of the body, and the body takes up 100 over here. The thing is that the way that CSS calculates or thinks about widths and just sizes in general, like dimensions, is a little funky. And I think you might have already experienced this in your first CSS is hard, right? So what's the property that I have to kind of add to this to make the border, yeah? Yeah, it's something like box sizing, border box. Something like that. And then if I change this back to, oh, it is at 50%. It didn't do it. Box sizing, border box, let's see. 50? It might be a different one. Box sizing. Not including the margin. Well, I mean, I could always just give this a margin of 0. I just gave it a margin of 10. Why would I do that? I give it a padding of 10, a margin of nothing, and a box sizing border box. That didn't do it. Yeah. This was very much stretch. Like, not stretch, but very much just like thing. Not part of the what I was trying to just show here is really the percentages make things resize. It's horrible, right? I'm sorry. Yeah, it's like you like grimace and look away. So these are percents. There's also things called EMs. If I go look at EM here, there's a relative length unit called an EM. There's also EX, CH, REM, VH, all these different ones. There's more units that you could like kind of poke with a stick here. There's so many to pick from. But EM is a unit that says when you're giving a size to a thing, instead of like size of pixel, it would be relative to the font size of that element. So 2 EMs means 2 times the size of the current font of that element. Now, go try it here. We're looking here at p tags, a div, and some spans, where the p tags, the divs, and the spans have all been given different font sizes. Notice the p here and the div have been given font sizes of pixels. And then they're given other properties like line height or border. And then the span's being given a font size of 0.5 EM. So P's, this is their like 16 pixel font size. where the line height of those P's is 2 times whatever the font size should be. So if the font size is 62, then the line height is, not 62, this is 16. Then the line height is 32. Okay? And now we've got 32 pixels of line height for each one of these. And over on this thing here, with the div, we might give the div a particular font size, and then if we give the span inside of that div a different font size, that's something like, in this case here, 0.5 EMs, then we've just said that the font in here is going to be half the size of this other thing. Right? It's just another way of kind of writing things that are somewhat, again, responsive, where, like, you know, regardless of how big this thing is, these are always going to be some percentage of that other one. Cool. So EMs are neat. I'm going to put them in the notes, but it's not really something I want to demonstrate. Where is it? Notes. So EMs. We're going to play around with percentages some more. So all of these things I'm kind of showing off a little bit. And then things like percentages, I'm going to show a thing called max width in the viewport and the thing called flexbox. Like those things we're going to actually play around with in a bit of a bigger demo. So all this is, you know, fine. Percentages are particularly kind of like interesting because we can do this stuff here, as I said. Right? So something like this green dude would have been done with some form of like a percentage width. Now, what we're going to do is instead do something more similar to what we saw on YouTube, or what Calgary didn't see on YouTube, but I won't show. Which is, as you resize the page, that's pretty cool. As you resize the page, some things snap at particular breakpoints. And the thing that we're going to use for that is something called a media query. And when people talk about responsive design, like this is your bread and butter. This is what responsive design is kind of made of, is querying for the size of the page, right? Or rather, querying for what medium are we currently in. If we go to like read up about media queries, we'll see that there's print. There's a couple different like media types, right? I haven't shown you the syntax yet. I'll show you the syntax in a second. But when we talk about media or mediums, right, we might be talking about, is the page on a screen, right? Is the page being printed out on a piece of paper, right? Because media queries come from, you know, ye olden times when people would print out websites, right? And printing out a website on a piece of paper is different than displaying a website on a screen. So we would have to write CSS that could tell, hey, am I being printed right now or am I on a screen? Okay? Or, you know, is this media for a speech synthesizer? Maybe things should be ordered in different ways if it's for speech. There used to be a bunch of other ones that have been deprecated. You know, TV media, handheld, braille, right? All these different embossed, right? All these different types of mediums that a website might be visible through. So on top of the type of media, we can also see things like the dimension of the media, right? Like the width or the height of the medium that we're looking at. The syntax for it is going to be a little bit funky, and I always get it wrong on my first try. So we're just going to copy this little thing right here. Boop. So I've just copied something from a page. I'm going to paste it in to a new main CSS. Or, you know, let's do it in the same one, actually. I'm going to paste it in the same one here. Oh, I didn't copy properly. I'm just copying for syntax, and the syntax is going to look like media screen, That's the media that we're looking through. You know, we haven't printed it. And what is this particular query for? This is for everything that has up to a maximum width of 600 pixels. Now, I could replace this with like minimum width. Everything that has a minimum width of something, right? So there's a maximum width and a minimum width. I'm going to do maximum width of 600 pixels. So anything that is up to 600 pixels wide, these rules in here will be triggered. And what I'm going to say is something like, hey, make the div background color green, purple, yellow, green. Those are nice colors. I'm seeing a little bit of, no, is that, I didn't go to like art school. I don't know. My sister does like interactive art and design. So sometimes like I show her the things that I make and she like visibly gags. Although y'all saw my like KanyeLyrics.com website yesterday. That was pretty nice. The big old face. I did make it. Yeah. Thank you. So here, just kind of delaying the execution of this thing here. Media screen, max width 600, and this is some rule. And what's interesting about this now is if I go and I, refresh this page, okay, nothing changes until I go, what? Oh my God! Whoa! Right? Like, what's that? If you set relative sizing, do you need to also set these max widths, min widths? So the max width, min width, that is, notice I have relative sizing on my divs right now, right? Like percentages, these are just what I'm doing with the width of the thing relative to the size of the body, right? Or the parent. But here I'm writing particular CSS that only gets triggered when the medium is different, right? So this CSS is only getting triggered when my screen goes to a particular size. And you can write arbitrary stuff in here. Like arbitrary. Okay, I could do, where'd my CSS go here? So background color that, I could say body, background color, what do we say here? Background color papaya whip. It's a nice color. And then for my divs, I might even do all sorts of things such as, let me just remove this box sizing that wasn't doing anything. And honestly, also the inline block. I could do all sorts of things such as, for the div, set the width to 100%. 1,000, 100%. So that when my media max width 600, when I trigger that, the width of the div goes from 50 to 100. So I go here and I start off and, oh, I took off the padding. Margin 10 pixels. There you go. Okay. So at a certain point, this thing snaps and it goes to 100. Right, and now we're seeing those breakpoints. There's a certain point where I've set, and that's where it happens. Are you seeing how mechanically this is essentially the same thing that YouTube was doing? Or for Calgary, because there's no way I'm going back to that website. Right now I have an example of, let's see, does this one do it? There we go. Here you go. Here's Eventbrite. Right, and as I get closer and closer and closer, at a certain point, boop, the layout has changed somehow. Right? There's that little snap point. Right? And that's what it is. We've done some form of query about what's our width at. Now, you'll notice that if you look up media queries, like if I go to the website that I was at here, CSS3 media queries, they have an example that says, oh, on screens that are 992 pixels or less, on screens that are 600 pixels or less. Like, 992 is a very specific number. That's a very specific number. Like, why? Why would you pick that number? So, my answer to you for like how do you pick what the proper breakpoints in your design should be in your website. It's going to be a little unsatisfying because it has to do with the design. Different designs call for different things. Generally, what a designer might do is they'll start off by designing mobile first, right? Designing from like the inside and then stretching the thing out until there's too much white space, right? Or until the website starts looking awkward. And then that's where you set a new snap point and you design something new or some adjustment of it there. And then you go a little bit further, you're like, oh, I've gone a little too far, now it also looks like garbage again, and I'll design like a new adjustment there, a new snap point. So it very much is, down to like tinkering, right? Down to where do you feel comfortable with it. Generally you might set yourself a couple different things, such as here is obviously one phase of it, one phase of the website size where there's a central kind of portion, there's some space on the sides, and I can kind of squeeze in and out, whoops, and it maintains its general form. And when I reach a certain point here, something else kind of happens. Not too much has changed. I get here, and then as soon as I've hit this, do you notice the teeny little change over with the Homer crash landing here? Right, where it like moves up a tiny bit. Right, we've got all these little minute changes. So there's big layout changes and smaller font size changes, or smaller like things like that. Now, the thing is, if I do this and I check out what my web page looks like on a phone, I'm going to be really disappointed to see that my whole responsive thing is not working. I'm like, what? I put all that work in for doing the responsive like media queries. Why isn't it doing anything here right now, right? The thing is, for slightly stupid reasons, like the browser will it'll still think it's like full size unless you give it this special tag. This special tag called a viewport. So I'm just going to copy this over and give you the link to the thing as well. But if we have this special tag called a viewport tag that says the viewport, the content should be the width of the device and the initial size of the screen should be 1.0. I'll be honest, I have no idea what this thing actually does mechanically underneath, but it's something that you need to do if you want phones to be able to recognize that you have media queries on. Okay? Then now all of a sudden it's able to recognize that stuff. Okay? I'm just going to change the CSS to go, instead of width 100, let's do width 80. Just so it looks less ugly. There you go. Right. Now, this is neat. We have a couple different things that we can do. Oh, question from Calgary. Why does your margins disappear on the right when it's small? So the thing is here, like I haven't done any work to like center my elements at all. So if I give them a particular width, such as 100%, give them a particular width such as 100%, the body has a padding by default. Right? So if you look at the body, like the body has a padding by default. The divs are trying to stretch to 100%, but they're being pushed to the right. So if I was to remove like margin on the body and then padding, not margin, padding on the body, basically a CSS like reset should do this. There you go. So here's one of the divs. I've reset like its margin, and now it like squeezes up to the top. I'm just trying to write as little CSS here for you so that you can just kind of see the mechanics of it. But I will be giving you like links to prettier websites, right? What I'm trying to focus on is just the mechanics of how it works, if that sounds all right. So if we were to make a list of the things that we can do now, we've got percentages, EMs. So EMs are relative font size to parent font size. Percentages are relative height and width to body, not body, to parent height and width. And then we've got media queries, run particular CSS based on screen size. And we can do anything from like anything that has a maximum width of something or a minimum width of something. And the place where this becomes really interesting for me is where we start using something called Flexbox. Yes. Yeah, you are right. It is relative current to the current font size. I guess I wrote parent because whatever you set as font size is inherited downwards. So yeah, you could say current parent font size. Right. Just anything you put on an element, right, just bleeds all the way down until somebody overwrites that. Okay. So we're going to kind of loosely talk about Flexbox, take a break, and then when we come back, we're going to do some more stuff with Flexbox, and specifically also look at CSS. So what Flexbox is it's a way for setting... Oh, right, that's the same question. Yeah. What Flexbox is here is it's a way for displaying sets of items, generally things that might look like lists or things that come sequentially. And the way it's going to work, I'm going to show you, will give a property to a container component. We give a property to a container component, and that property is display, and we'll tell it to display flex. This will not like immediately have any visible differences, most likely. Well, let's see. So I'm just going to make kind of a new copy of these. Okay, so okay, so in my new HTML file that I'm working on, I'm going to have one big div that contains maybe like many little divs. And this div here I'm going to call container. And these other ones, I'm not going to give them any names, they're just divs. And if I wanted to target, so let's do body again, is color papaya whip. I think there's one called burnt something. Burleywood. Burleywood. Is that a question? Oh, was that? Yeah. If you highlight stuff in VS Code, you can do things like round braces and it'll put it everywhere. Quotation marks, curly braces, all that stuff. Yeah, I mean actually just those things. Oh no, square brackets. Anything that you would usually want to be wrapped around, VS Code already has like aliased. Like that. So yeah, it probably looks super cool, I guess, right? Like what? How Nima do? Yeah, cool. Witchcraft. Yeah. Just, has anybody seen the movie The Witch? It's messed up, right? Oh, yeah. I was watching it with someone. We tapped out like 4 minutes in. Yeah, it's a hard movie. Anyways, so I've got my div, class container, all these little divs. So I'm gonna say something like, let's make the container color pink Ooh, pale violet. Pale violet red. And then you're gonna make our divs inside of that container some other color, like baby blue. No, aquamarine. There you go. Nice little pastel-y thing. And now the divs in this container, I'm gonna give them a width of honestly something fixed, like 150 pixels, and a height of 150 pixels. And just right now, what we should see is nothing. Oh, there we go. Oh, because I never attached the CSS, did I? Main CSS, index HTML, main CSS. Well, I don't know. Let's see. Here's my HTML. It's my body. My div. Here's one div. Here's another. Here's another. Oh, I wrote color instead of background color. There you go. Hey, background will also do. Background is short for background color. Yeah. But background is short for background color plus other properties, but if you pass it a color, it's short for background color. So if I did this, no difference over here. Same thing. So now here's what I see. I've got my 3 divs here. My 3 divs. I'm going to give them a little bit. Oh, these are nice colors though, eh? I'm going to give my container a bit of padding. And I'm going to give each div a little bit of margin, just so that we can see the separation in all of them. And then what I'm going to do here, is tell the container to display flexfully. Like flex on them. And then wham. That's it. That's Flexbox. I told the container to display the items inside of it flexfully, and they flexed. We're going to do something interesting here. I'm going to say maybe instead of just having each one of these be a div, I'm going to give each one an ID. Oh, you know what? We'll call them things. What's a name? You got a name that I can identify? What's that? Rebecca? All right, so this is Rebecca. What's this div called? Huh? Roger. And this other div? Agda? Magda. Oh, Grandma Magda. There you go. So we got Rebecca, Roger, and Magda. And if I go ahead and I write some stuff here, so this is Rebecca, this is Roger, and here is Magda. I'm going to give each of them like a different background color. So Rebecca's aquamarine. Roger is a, let's see, we're going to give Roger a solid fire brick. And actually, I think Magda's more of a fire brick. There you go. Magda's a fire brick, and Roger is, I like VS Code because I could just go U. Okay, U is not a color. C, cadet blue. Chocolate. Roger is nice chocolate. And if I go ahead and refresh this, I'm seeing that these are all different. Reason I'm showing you this is because with flex, I've said display flex. I can say something like flex direction. And I'll see that there's a couple properties such as row reverse. What? Right? CSS should not have all this power, right? Like, this is almost as if it's changing the layout of the page, sort of, right? So what if we mix this up with, you know, like a media query? I'm going to steal a media query from over here. take a media query. I'm going to say, oh, how about at specific snap points? Where did I put the row reverse? At specific snap points, container turns into row reverse. Now as I resize my thing. What? Right? And again, I want you to notice, and not just that it's moving to the right, the order of the thing is changing. So we go, what is this? Rebecca, Roger, Magda. And now we're Magda, Roger, Rebecca. Yes. Mm-hmm. Rebecca, Roger, Magda. Rebecca, Roger, Magda. So the HTML is staying the same, right? It's just the way that the stuff is being rendered on the page that changes, right? Pretty neat. Pretty neat for some reasons. We'll kind of keep exploring this. And as I keep pushing this in, I gave them a set width, so they kind of stay there. Oh, no. If there's an image, like, no, that stuff doesn't get flipped. But if I wrote, like, Rebecca and Roger and Magda, I'm just going to do some CSS so this stuff's actually legible. Container div, color white, font size 20 pixels. Right, so Rebecca, well, that's not very legible, but Rebecca, Roger, and Magda. So the content's still staying the same. But like the text doesn't get pushed over. Nope. It's just the item itself, the layout of the items. These things have been reorganized. I'm just starting off from down there instead. Right. So we're going to take a short break, and then we're going to dive into Flexbox a little bit more. Right? There's some cool stuff that we can explore there. And then we're going to talk about this thing called SASS. Right? Right. We good for a break? No questions from Calgary? Doesn't look like it. Sweet. See y'all in, honestly, let's give it like 10 minutes, because I did 6 minutes for y'all yesterday and I feel bad. So we'll do a 10-minute break, and if we're still tired, maybe we'll do like 3 more minutes. So, all right. Yeah, I figured I would give you some nice colors. Yeah. Check out. Let there be art. Let there be more art. Let there be more art. Look at how artistic I am. These are all hand-picked by Nima. I went through all the billion colors that exist and picked out. Oh no, that one was nice. How do I go back? Oh, there we go. Undo. This one's nice. So just want to get verification from Calgary that audio is working. And as soon as you let me know, we're going to get started. I'm just going to wait a little longer. Oh, Connor's ready. We good, fam? All right. Let's do it. So, when we left off, what we had done, like this, yeah. So when we had left off, what we had done was something along the lines of, just undo a little bit. There you go. We had this kind of situation going on where as I resized the page, things were getting realigned, and we were playing around with Flexbox a little bit. Right? Flexbox is made up of kind of two parts. The first part here is what properties do you give a parent? And the other part is what properties do you give the children, right? Which we'll call the flex items. Right? There are many properties that you can pick from. I'm just going to show you like the useful ones, and honestly most of them are over in the parent. So if I go to my parent and I say something like flex direction row, then it's flex direction row. I've put flex direction row reverse on the container for the medium here for the media query, but I could change this to column. And when I go here now, when I refresh, what I see is, nothing's different here. And when I snap in, what? Oh my God, what? Right? Like we got all sorts of cool stuff happening. Right? So when we reach a certain point, it snaps down. Right? This is responsive design. You can do whatever you want with this. Here, let's make a thing. There's a there's an image here of a website that you might want to build. Where is it? Not this one. Keep going. Oh, there we go. This thing here. Nate, like we might want to make a website that looks something like this, where it's got a header and then 3 parts next to each other and then a footer. And then as we rescale the page, maybe different things happen, such as maybe this sidebar and the article and this other sidebar here get put one on top of each other. Right? So that only parts of it are responsive and the other parts here stay the same. Now, I'm just going to do that in a separate little thing here. So boop and boop. So just to show you the picture of the thing that we're going to try and build, something that looks a little bit like this. Header, sidebar, article, sidebar, footer. So my index HTML, my HTML portion of it, if I look at this, it's got a header and then some other chunk of stuff and then a footer. So I could conceivably like break this down into 3 things. Header, chunk, footer. Very similar to what you have for your tweets in Twitter. So I might go header and then some div that I'm going to call class chunk and then maybe a footer. Right? And I don't really need this div class container right now. I'm just going to make this as bare bones as possible. Put in some space. So header, div, footer. At the moment right now, if I was to go and check my page with no CSS, so this is my index HTML here, and then this is my CSS, I see a good old heckin' nothing. Good old nothing. I'm going to give this maybe some some width. I could give the header a height of like 150 pixels and give the chunk also some height of like 500 pixels, and I could give the footer also a height of 200 pixels maybe, and give each of these like backgrounds. So I'm not gonna make them all red. Instead, what we're gonna do is pick pretty colors. So space. Ooh, I mean these are nice. I'm gonna pick this one and wheat. Oh, these have names. Wheat, Old Burgundy. That's cute. That, and then silver sand. Okay, so I've got my colors, and if I go and check what my page looks like now, these are my things. Oh, this is nice. Very nice. So I've got header, chunk, and footer. Now, I gave this fixed heights. What is something that we learned about, maybe not doing fixed, because it's fixed, so I get all this scrolling action. But I just wanted to take up the full page. What could I do? Well, I could do something like giving maybe the header a height of like 20% and give this a height of 60% and give this a height of 20%. So it adds up to 100. And now what I look at over here is, what? That didn't work. Header. Oh, the issue here is that even though my header, my div, and my footer have heights of, whatever percentages, how big is the body right now? The thing that I'm highlighting. Here's my body. I don't have any content in there, so by default, my body's just gonna squish. But I can do things like give the body a height of 100% of the page. Okay, that still won't necessarily work because the HTML page itself is also not taking up 100% of the screen. So I'll have to go HTML, comma body, and give them both a height of 100. So my HTML page is taking up 100% of the screen. My body's taking up 100% of my HTML. And my header's taking up 20, div is taking 60, and footer's taking 20 of the body. Right? So I just had to kind of work my way up. I'm also just going to remove like all the padding and margin from the body just so that I don't get any scrolling action. So I'm just going to give this margin 0, padding 0. This is like Nima's reset. So here's my page. Header, chunk, footer. And I wanted 3 things in my chunk, right? I wanted, if I look at the picture that I was looking at before, sidebar, article, and sidebar 2. So I could go into index.html and go, okay, well here's, what are we going to do? Aside, and then article, trying to use those semantic tags, and then aside. And now, if I refresh, I'm still not going to see anything because I didn't give them any height or width or any content to display. So this is the aside, the footer, the 2 asides in the article, like they're not visible. So for the purposes of this demo, like I'm going to give them fixed heights and like widths. So I'm going to say, okay, well, the aside and the article are both going to take up a height of 100%. So this is going to be 100% of their parent, which is the chunk. Just put this under here. Chunk. Order doesn't necessarily matter in this case, but I just wanted to see like chunk and then aside article. And then I might say that the asides have a width of, I don't know, 30%. And then 30 plus 30 is 60, which gives me an article should have a width of 40%. And I'm going to give these nice backgrounds as well so we can also just see that those things are there. So background and background. And if I'm just going to pick two more colors here. I picked silver sand, wheat. I didn't pick flax, and I didn't pick burgundy, I don't think yet. So, oh no, did I? Yeah, I didn't pick flax. Cool. Just so we can tell the difference between all the elements. There you go. So this decidedly does not look like the thing that we were trying to build. Right? Decidedly doesn't. But the thing is, within here, within my HTML, I want to say that these three things should be displayed side by side. Flexfully. So I could tell the chunk here to display flex. And now by default, when you display flex, it displays in a row. But I like to say flex direction row just to remind myself. Beautiful. Look at that. I hit every color. Does this make sense? Right? I could write now a media query that says, hey, as I make this thing smaller, when I hit a certain snap point, and this is where we get to, again, that idea of, like, it's whatever kind of feels good to you as a designer, right? I'm like, okay, this thing looks fine up until maybe here, and at this point, this is where I want to turn it into a scrolling, and I can take a look at what the dimensions are. It's like, oh, it's like, there's numbers up here when you drag. It's like, oh, like 940 pixels is where I want to do it. So I'll say everything maybe that has a maximum width of 940 pixels. Let me just take that media query. 940 pixels here, max width 940. I'm going to say change the chunk to flex direction column instead. Yes. Boop. Thank you. Yeah. That's a good question. Yeah. I have no idea. I don't think it would work. Yeah. Let's see if I did this. If I just forgot. I don't think it defaults to anything. It just wouldn't do it.
Is there anything in like the tools like crossed out?
So to see that, I have to go to the chunk, and then this stuff here doesn't pop up unless I'm in. Whoops. I'm actually not sure how to trigger on this side as if it was a particular height or something, or just to see the things. Because in the dev tools, as far as I understand, it only shows you the things that are currently trying to be applied. So it's not going to try and apply to the thing until it matches that media query, right? And since we haven't given it a valid media query here, it won't be able to do it. Now I go 940 pixels, and at a certain point, right, the thing, whoa, what did I do? I don't know. Let's see.
Oh, because it's column in there, but you had it in row on the other flex.
Yeah, I did have it in row here, and I wanted to change the flex direction. I'm just going to see what happens if I change this. Okay, so that's fine. Oh, did I say 940? No. Yeah, because, no, I was just checking the numbers here. Let me just, oh, wait, did I max width 940 pixels? Let's try 600 pixels and just see what happens. 600 pixels. And column, okay, so. Huh. Why is the thing being triggered all the time, eh? Oh, no, it's not. Oh, okay. Huh. Weird. Anyways, there you go, apparently. That's a good question. Like, does this sidebar here count as part of the dimensions? This thing? I think what's kind of going on here is the way that I'm counting pixels might be different than the way this is counting pixels. I mean, I'm not sure. Well, one thing that I do want to say is that when this thing does change, though, I want to change all the aside and article width to 100%. So over here, now as I resize this thing, it hits a certain place and it snaps like that. Right? There we go. So this is neat. This is cool. This is fine. Basically, the next kind of step here would be to look at this code and say, ooh, ew, gross. Look at how much CSS you wrote. I wish it was smaller. That's where SASS comes in. So SASS is what we call a preprocessor language, right? It's a language that we use to then generate another language. So SASS, syntactically awesome style sheets, is CSS with superpowers. Right? There's gonna be awesome CSS, and there's specifically just a couple things about SASS that make CSS better. So the thing I'm trying to show you here isn't necessarily like oh, this is how SASS works. I'm trying to show you the idea of sometimes you have a language and you want to make it even better. You could use libraries, or you could use something that's constructed on top of that language, right? So with JavaScript, some people are like, JavaScript's cool, but you know what's cooler? Having types in JavaScript. So somebody made TypeScript, which is a language that's almost like JavaScript. You write in this thing called TypeScript, and then it turns into JavaScript. Here, we're going to be writing in a thing called SASS, and that's going to turn into CSS. So, in general, I already have this set up over here. We'll be writing a bunch of SASS, which almost looks like CSS, except it's got some funky things in it. What's the first funky thing that pops up to you? Okay, dollar signs. Right? And what are the dollar signs doing? Yeah, they're variables, right? We have variables, but we're not supposed to have variables in CSS. What? SASS gives us variables. There you go. I could say, here's the font stack. Here's the primary color, yellow. And then anywhere I want, I could go, color is $primary color. Right? Font is $font stack. Right? So I just get that benefit. There's no variables in CSS, but there are variables in SASS. Fine. What else do we notice here? It's nested. There's some form of nesting in here, right? So in normal CSS, say let's say the aside and the article, they're supposed to be within the chunk. In SASS, what you can do is take this and write it inside. So this isn't valid CSS, but it is valid SASS. We're just going to kind of explore this idea here. I have a setup built so that I have a project where I write SASS, right, main.scss, and in my Express server, I have this thing called SASS middleware, which is constantly reading my SASS and generating CSS. Okay, it reads the SASS and it makes CSS for me, right? This is something that's already going to be set up for you in the boilerplate that you get for your midterm project. And what I really want to kind of show you here, let me start up the server. Oh, it is started up. You go to localhost 3000, and what did that's not what it's supposed to be. Oh, I guess it is. Index HTML res dot, yeah. Yes. Okay. Calgary is a question. Does having this middleware slow anything down? Not really. Not really. Not noticeably at all. Like a millisecond. Sure, it is an extra operation in there, right? But it's not really something that you have to worry about. Also, what'll often happen is I have it set up as middleware right now, and that's good for development purposes, so that as I keep editing my SASS, you're going to see that the CSS changes. But what one might do is when you roll out to production, you'll take all your SASS, turn it into CSS, and just serve the CSS so the middleware is not there. Right? So I just wanted to show you this HTML page that I have set up. Looks like this. I have 3 H1s. H1 cool, more, and then cool more. Right? Those are the classes that I gave it. So cool, more, and then this one has both of the classes. And this is currently pointing to styles main CSS. So if I go look at main CSS, this is the CSS. There's a cool, and then there's a cool.more. And if I look at my main SASS, this is the thing I was showing you before, where I have these two variables. Here is cool, and then I'm saying with this ampersand, anything that has cool and also more. Right? I just kind of threw a little sneaky at you. Anything that has cool and also the more class has this thing here. So this is the code that like I can write. Say I go ahead and change this to red. I've written some SASS. And over in the main CSS, when I try to access that page, my express middleware will go ahead and this used to say blue, now it says red. I just want to show you that any valid CSS is valid SASS. Right? So let me just undo this change here. Go ahead and refresh again. Any valid CSS is valid SASS. So if I make sure that these two are a little copied there, I'm going to start off with my main CSS being empty and my main SCSS being empty. So a SASS file will have the extension .scss or .sass. It doesn't make a difference. And I'm going to have my index HTML be identical to the one that we had built previously with the chunk. So identical. I'm just going to point the styles at styles/main CSS. So this is the same HTML page that we'd made before. Right now I'm pointing to an empty CSS file. Empty CSS file. Let me just open just the useful ones here. If I go ahead and I refresh, like this is blank, that's fine. Right? It's fine. I'm going to grab the main CSS that we just made, the one that had Nima's reset and chunk and aside. I'm going to grab all of that, paste it into main SCSS. So I've just pasted in CSS. I save, I refresh, same as before. Except for, I don't know why that. Oh, because I'm zoomed in. There you go. I had zoomed in to like 400%. Actually, that might be the issue that from the other one is I had zoomed in. I have this compulsion to like zoom in to like 400% all the time. But what we're seeing here is my main SASS is the same as the CSS that I'd written. if I go look at the main CSS that gets generated, you know, literally no difference, right? Because there was nothing to fix. But I could go ahead and I could start making this thing like maybe a little bit nicer in terms of saying, oh, you know what? I want to nest the asides, article, you know, these things inside of chunk, inside of my SASS. Now this is illegal CSS, but it's legal SASS. If I save this and I refresh, I'm still fine over here. My main CSS, it will have generated, you know, nice rules that pull the thing out of the nesting. But I get the benefit of, as I develop with SASS, to have all of the things that should live under chunk be inside of chunk. Just a nice organizational tool, right? Now all that stuff could just be saved in one place. Same with my media query, right? Right, like I might, ooh, actually I don't know. Can I grab the media query and put it in here? That I'm actually not sure. Probably not, let's see. Nah, okay, I guess that doesn't work that way. There's probably some way of making the media query work properly in there. But really, what I'm trying to show you is, for SASS, if the only benefit was that you can nest things, right, that's an awesome benefit already. Right? Your CSS files don't end up being these long beasts, right? They end up being like a little bit more nested. Right? Say I have some pretty colors. With SASS, as we saw, I could do all my colors. Right? Color 1, you know, color 2. I'm going to write it in American spelling just because that's the way that they like it here. Okay, here's color 1, and this one's going to be color 2. Made little variables. Right, color 1 and color 2, and then now what happens is absolutely nothing. Like, it's fine. It's totally fine. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's a good question. I want to say yes, right? I mean, you could always test it by, like, what if I throw important on here? Like, I threw important on here, and I'm going to go ahead and refresh to just rebuild my SASS. And when I look here, important is still existing inside of the CSS file, right? So all SASS is going to do is you take the code that you write, and it translates it over to CSS, right? And now this is nice because if I have a bunch of variables, color 2, 3, 4, and I think I had a fifth one, 5 maybe. Okay, I can go grab all those colors from places. So this was my aside. I'll put it over here. And this is another one. I'll put it over there. And here's another one. And I'll put this over here. I can go ahead and just replace all these things with color 3 and color 4 and color 5. And it might be a little, you know, like you're like, what's the benefit of this? I've just moved the values up somewhere else. But imagine that you have huge CSS files. You're working at Facebook and you have this gigantic application, right? Do you want to, every time that the marketing team or like the branding team's like, oh, here's color picker, right? Like, oh, we've decided to change from this blue to this blue instead. We feel that that suits, you know, that reflects our vibrancy and our youth, whatever, like more. I'm gonna be like, God damn it! Like I have to go through and change every single one. No, like you use your SASS and you go into the variable and you're like, okay, A4 to 3. There you go. Right, and now I've changed that. Do you see what I mean? This is all stuff that's like quality of life. Quality of life. Any questions from Calgary? I forgot to check. It's having middle. No, so that's the same question from before. Cool. And again, the thing I want you to get from this is like you're going to be working with SASS on your midterm project. You can just write CSS. That's fine, right? Or you can nest things. Right? That's also fine. Here are some other cool things that you can do with SASS. Right? Variables, nesting, these things called partials. Right? You use partials in your EJS. What if I wanted to have multiple SASS files here? Here we're gonna do main header SASS. So I've got my header SASS where I do something like just have all my header stuff, right? This may or may not work with the setup that I have right now, but we'll just find out. I have all my header stuff, and then inside of main, you can import the header. So let me just remove the header from in here. So you can import the name of the file that you want. So if you've named your thing underscore something, so I named myself underscore header, you would go import and then the name of the thing without the underscore and without dot .scss. And it's like importing your partials in EJS. Whoops, I scrolled a little bit too far. Here you go. So it would look something like this. I'm going to give you a link to this page because it has really anything that you need to know about SASS, just kind of broken down into little chunks. But ideally here, if I was to refresh my page, ideally, oh snap, it worked. Okay, we're in business. So I've got all my header stuff being imported, and I could change this color to be blue, right? And now that's being imported in header, right? Just modularizing your SASS, right? Modularizing your CSS. Do you need to do it? No. But again, can you imagine instead of having one very long CSS file, having many little ones, right? Just the benefit of that. Right. Notice also that I'm using variables like $color1 somewhere else. Like $color1 is defined in main, and I'm using it in header. That's pretty cool. I'm going to show you, let's see, mixins, extends. We'll do operators. You can do math. You can do math. So if I wanted to say header is 10 plus 10%, I think this should work. I might be wrong. Let's see. Yeah, there you go. 10 plus 10%. Maybe I'll make the header 10 plus 20%. Oh, that didn't do it. No. Color1s. Weird. I guess the math doesn't work that way. Maybe it's the pluses. The brackets. Well, how about I just copy one of the examples? That would be a good way to do it. Your width 600 pixels divided by 960 pixels times 100%. Right. I could do the height is 25 pixels times, no, let's do something better. 100 pixels times 100%. So my height of the header is going to be 100 pixels times 100%, and we'll just see what that means. Just that, apparently. Is my thing still running? Yeah. And if I change this from 100 pixels to 100% to 200%, what happens? Oh, I guess nothing. I could, yeah, and see what it kind of looks like. Ah. Good point. Doesn't look like that's doing anything. If I delete the background color, that's definitely doing something, though. Oh, that's not doing anything. This was doing something before, though. It totally was doing something before, right? I'm not nuts. Import header. Let me undo a little bit until I was where it was doing stuff. Yeah. Um. Good question. So let's see if I change this to blue. So it updates anytime I refresh, or it should. So that didn't. Header is stuck at 20. Main. Hmm. Let me clear this. So my main is blank. I'm gonna refresh this, and I should see. With 40%. Hmm. Close this responsive one. So, oops. Hmm. So how's main CSS? My main CSS right now is straight up blank, or it should be. But for some reason, it's actually finding stuff. Oh my god. Do you know why? So I have the same page open in two different places. One's my old example that wasn't using SASS. And so I'm just going to close that. There we go. This was probably working this whole time. Yeah. So let me just go back. So that's fine. So this was color 1. And here I'd done stuff like 20 plus 20 pixels, percent. Just want to see if that does anything. No, so adding percentages like that doesn't work. But if I was doing the other thing, which was 100 pixels times 100%, that doesn't work either. Let's see. I'll be honest. This was something that I just didn't try. Huh? No, this is the new one. What's that? When I empty it, it gets regenerated. Yeah, so when I empty it, it gets regenerated. I mean, I'm going to be completely honest. I'd never really played around with math and SASS before, right? This was me just kind of testing things out on the fly. We are at kind of the end of the time that I want to keep you for. What I kind of want to end just thought-wise is just the fact that with SASS, if all it was that it did variables, then that'd be cool. If all it was that it did nesting, then that'd be cool as well. It does both. And then it also does this partial stuff. And that on its own, interesting. Okay? You don't have to worry about setting up SASS for the midterm because the boilerplate that you get has it built in. Right now, though, in the tweeter like stretch stuff, there's like one of them is asking you to try to use SASS with it. And the way you're using SASS with it is something similar to what I have set up. So I'm going to post this just so you can take a look at it, but yours may or may not end up looking different in terms of actual like JavaScript setup. There is one thing called a mix-in. A mix-in here. Mix-ins are kind of whack. What does this kind of look like to you? Just draw on your non-CSS knowledge. It looks like a function. Have you ever wanted functions in CSS? Now you have functions in CSS. Am I going to demonstrate this stuff? No. Okay. I'll give you like links to other kind of tutorials where people do demonstrate that stuff because it is pretty neat. But I just feel like it's beyond what like you need to know, and it's also beyond what like some of you may or may not find interesting. So I'll let you kind of explore that. If you do have questions about this, reach out to me, or reach out to some other people. You can reach out to me. Is that a question? Yeah. Ooh, let's see. Yo, look at that. So Cool. So, and then I'll put this on responsive or something. Cool. So, right. So for Calgary, the thing here was that Tristan found how you can figure out where the breakpoints are. And to find that, you need to be in the mobile, like, responsive view. Okay. And then you click on the 3 dots. And there's show media queries. Show media queries. And then that toggles into hide media queries. And then what that does is add a little bar at the top that shows the one media query that I added, which was at 600 pixels. So I can go there like that. Or I can even click on it to snap myself there. Yeah, I can also click the different devices such as mobile, small, mobile, medium, mobile, large, and tablet, or toggle different ones. Cool. You can also do this, change device orientation, and like go landscape portrait if you really wanted to play around with that. You can do so many things with this. It's honestly really cool. Great. Are y'all good if I kind of end it off here? Right? I will format up some notes. I'm going to give you links to like some other notes as well if you want to kind of take a look. Have fun with the rest of Tweeter. Right? It's a fun project. And if you do have questions, please reach out. Same goes for you, Calgary. Feel free to reach out to me for any help. Great. Have a great rest of the day, everyone. And have a really great weekend as well. Thanks.